until just
just
it went to my
All right.
address.
She only sent it.
Welcome to our City Council meeting for tonight, January 22nd, 2020. We will begin with an invocation by Pastor Reidenbach from Mountain View Baptist Church, and then we will have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Isom. So thank you for being here with us tonight.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we love you. Thank you now for this time, Lord, and just thank you that we have the privilege to meet together, the freedom. Thank you, Lord, for this great country we live in. What a blessing. Father, now it's such a privilege to come and even request wisdom. And we know the Bible says that if we lack it, we can ask and be given liberally. And Father, I just thank you for that. Pray you give wisdom to the council members and to the mayor and those that run our city, Lord, and just pray that you would bless them, encourage them, and even bless this evening. And we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Please stand and join me in pledging allegiance to our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will now move on to our agenda order approval. This will be for all the agendas. Are there any items the council would like changed from the published agenda? And if not, can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll now go to council business.
Can I just share my enthusiasm for what's happening with the fiber that's being laid in town?
Yes, you can share that.
Is that okay? It really is nice to see that South Central Communications has made a commitment, and
They're moving fast.
they're booking. Yeah, they're cooking up on the hill. I mean, I see them everywhere up there now, and so we're appreciative of that and hope that will be of great value to the community when it's completed. So I'm just excited.
Mayor, I have another commitment at 7:00. If by some chance we are not finished, I'm going to have to excuse myself. So
Thank
just
you.
give you
Hogan's Heroes doesn't start till 8:30.
That's right. That's right.
Dave and I.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned this last week, but I'm going to start doing these monthly council walks as a way to force myself to get out in the community. The first one starts this Friday morning at 8 a.m. Going to meet at the southwest corner of that intersection of 200 South and 300 West by the College Founders Hall, and just zigzag between 200 and 400 South westward to the freeway or until 2 hours, whichever comes sooner. And so anyone that lives in that area is especially welcome to attend. Any other members of staff or council are welcome to attend, and just see how what people's concerns are in that area, and make sure that different areas are being visited. So hopefully we'll see 48 of those over the next 4 years, and maybe cover the whole city by then.
That's great. Good for you. I
Excellent.
plan to try and be there, so we'll see. Can I bring my coffee mug with me?
Of course, as long as I can bring my Diet Coke.
Absolutely.
Choose.
Mayor, I attended a meeting last week, and I had a couple of citizens bring this up, and I said I would address it with staff. I know it's not our responsibility, but if we could maybe urge the correct bodies, they're saying that there's a lot of dead animals that are on Main Street, and they were mostly referring to deer, and mostly on the north part of town, but they seem to stay there an inordinately long amount of time. So I don't know if that's Division of Wildlife Resource. I don't know who's responsible, but if we could urge them to maybe step up and help us, and maybe the chief can enlighten us.
Yeah. Darren Adams with the police department. So that is DWR. Our animal control officers will often go out and try to move those temporarily until they can get there. But those are communicated as soon as we're aware, and then DWR picks those up. Sometimes it can be half a day, or longer.
So evidently it's been longer, according
Okay.
to these citizens. So
Yeah, I'll reach out to Officer Carver and let him know that that's a problem.
great.
And see if he can get on top of that.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
That's all I have.
Are there any others? Hey, Darren, come back.
Speak about certain things.
Do you want to talk about the Clint?
Oh, yes. Yes. Thank you. So
We're
as you
going to move to
probably,
staff comments. So with Darren.
as you probably saw, we had Sergeant Pollock receive a first responder award. We've tried to do that every year for the last 4 years. Before him, Officer Lovell, Sergeant Evans, Sergeant Womack. But that is the NAACP First Responder Awards in conjunction with the Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks celebration that the NAACP does. And so it's one of those things that we feel like is important. It is good for the morale of the officers, and it's certainly deserving. And what's surprising to me is there's not a lot that nominate from across the state. We talk about that in our Utah Chiefs Board meeting about pushing, and I think this year was a little bit better. So anyway, it was well deserved, and especially for him as the face of the department to receive that award. So
What kind of criteria do they use for the selection?
So honestly, it's you nominate,
Mhm.
and as long as they have the spaces, they'll accept your nomination. They take that at face value, and we've always been able to get someone in there. So I think they would probably do more if more were nominated. They just really want to pay homage to the first responders and
great.
their heroic efforts and showcase them. And a lot of that has to do with community involvement. So that's probably the biggest criteria aside from law enforcement is the fact that these individuals are engaged in the community doing things other than law enforcement, coaching and engaged in cultural activities and just giving back. So
That's great.
yeah, thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you. All right. Are there any other staff comments? Okay. We will move on to our public agenda with our public comment portion. If there's anyone that would like to address the council. Will you just state your name for the record so we have it as well?
Tom Watson, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is my first time here. I am the newest, I guess you can say, reporter for the Iron County Today
Oh.
News. They recently had a great need for staff, so they were going to do a story on me anyway, but they said, can you do reporting? I said, that's how I started. So anyway, I'm here to cover you guys. Behave yourselves.
Likewise.
I'm a good guy. I'm a good guy. I'm one of the good guys. I actually went to journalism school. So anyway, I just want to put it out there that if you ever have any questions, comments, or you need to put something in the paper and whatnot, you can either get a hold of me or get a hold of Corey Baumgartner. And this goes for the members of our audience as well. Please do get in touch with us. They have great things in mind and in store for the paper. And so I just wanted to thank you as I am brand new to this community. We've been here 2 weeks.
Wow.
And it's been phenomenal. I have found everybody here to be very different from me. I'm from Northern California. Everybody in Northern California is a little odd, but that's okay. We came from, my wife and I came from the community of Paradise, California,
Oh, yeah.
and which is still having problems.
Yeah.
But my wife said, can we move to Utah? And I said, let's go. And she chose Cedar City. So we have our new house, our new community, and beginning to have a whole bunch of new friends and things that we get to do here. So anyway, thank you very much.
Great. Welcome to the community. We
Thank
look
you.
forward to working with you. Welcome.
Do you have any questions?
No, we enjoy the paper, and we look forward to seeing your work.
Me too.
We welcome refugees from California as long as
Having been one yourself.
that's right. As long as
Are you from California?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
My last, yeah. No, it's great place to be from.
From, yes, indeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks. Are there any other public comments? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to our business agenda with our public portion with item number 1, Wreaths Across America.
Good evening. My name is Allie Overly, and I'm a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution chapter that is here. I'm the secretary. We came tonight after talking with Mayor Wilson Edwards about Wreaths Across America right before Christmas. With me is our chapter regent, Sandy Ball, and the chairman of the Wreaths Across America. So I'd like her to take a few minutes to explain to you a little bit about what we would like for your participation in Cedar City.
We have a short video we'd like to show you first.
Okay. You're the chairman for the National Wreaths Across
The
America?
coordinator for all the cemeteries and everything.
Got it. Got
I-
it. Just
I'm-
wanted to make sure I got
I'm the
that.
treasurer of the DAR.
No, you do a great job. I just verifying.
Do you have your flash drive or something, or did you?
No, I
give us
sent
my
it to
phone?
you. The
Oh, what's your mic? Put it on.
I was requested to send it to your secretary and she would move it to where it needed to be moved on to. So
I've got
we didn't bring a jump
Was it
drive.
in a PowerPoint or?
You can put it, I'll give you the.
Sorry.
Got all the other.
Did you attend the one in Enid?
Hmm.
Did you go to the one in
Yes.
December?
No, between about November 15th and about it was January. This website right here.
Because of the year end?
So
I guess they're trying to get that for your. Gotcha. I thought maybe you were hoop ready for the campaign.
what is that?
There it goes. Magic
Hold
touch,
on a
Mr.
second.
Bittman.
Let me make sure I got the right one.
Says the video is unavailable.
Oh,
That's not good.
gosh, Tom must be in shock. He's not in his right seat. He got lost. Tom Jack got
I
lost.
know,
tonight. He's not
I
in the
know,
right
it's,
seat.
the world has spun off of its axis.
Keep my phone there.
I know you've got that
Casey needs it.
letter from.
Well, I guess we'll
Duke
start without the video.
Benson,
Benson.
So this year,
tell what he was
our
Well, he danced around.
Wreaths Across America theme from Wreaths Across America is Be an American Worth Fighting For. We're asking the city council to help us find a chairperson and a committee to work with the DAR and myself as coordinator. We would like you to help us find donors to sponsor the wreaths and to spread the word about the wreaths. Like Mayor, you
could
might
you
put
speak
it
into the
in-
mic? Pull the mic down a little more because there you go.
Like Mayor, you might put it in your monthly newsletter about the Wreaths Across America. Last year, we put 125 to 135 wreaths between Summit and Enoch. This year, we hope to place 1,025. There are 802 veterans in Cedar City. There are 102 at Enoch, 19 in Summit, and 93 in Paraguna. Those are the 4 cemeteries that we hope to cover this year. The wreaths are $15 each, but the Bald Eagle chapter has decided to take the 3 for 2. In other words, we're not going to make any money on this project whatsoever. But if you buy 2 wreaths, you get the third one free. So we have them send the money directly to our DAR, so we hold the money till we have enough to get the 2 wreaths, so we get the 3rd one free. So we need this year, the celebration will be on December 19th. And as of right now, they've slotted Cedar for 2:30, but that can be changed in committee. The committee would meet with the DAR representatives and Wreaths Across coordinator. Their duties would be to assist the fundraising, take care of the logistics as to what part of the cemetery the program is to take place, the sound system, chairs, and a flatbed to take the wreaths to the area where the ceremony is to take place. Several people from the committee would meet with the coordinator and a couple of DAR people to unload the wreaths. The wreaths have to be watered down so that they stay nice and fresh for the ceremony. The wreaths usually arrive 2 to 3 days before the ceremony. A copy of the transcript for the ceremony is included in your folder. It should be about the second thing in there. There's also a copy of the donation sponsorship form, and it shows, are we ready?
Got it up, but
Okay, can you wait just till I'll finish? I'm just about done. It shows the sponsorship amount and where the wreath is to be placed. The sponsorship gets a choice of where they want the wreath to go. It also shows if they want to lay a wreath, and if so, what the veteran's name is. And then the last page shows the person's name and the veteran they're sponsoring, and if they want to lay the wreath, so that we can contact them when the time comes, because they'll meet a little bit before, so we can instruct them, and then the others will lay the wreaths. Okay, go ahead with the video now.
First, when you stop breathing.
Yeah.
And the second time, your name is spoken for the very last time.
No, that's not the right one.
It's peaceful.
That's the one with the, that's not the right one.
And I feel that connection with my son and God. You don't have to go very deep.
That's not the right one.
The biggest fear both families have that the child will be forgotten.
This is how it starts.
We gather here today to place over 24,000 holiday wreaths.
Will this one be okay, Mary?
We gather here today to place over 24,000 holiday wreaths to remember the fallen, honor those who served, and to teach our children the value of freedom.
As you place that wreath, take the time to look at that name. A lot of these stones don't have people anymore to come by and pay respect.
You'd be proud, just like we are. Thank you.
Michael Martino was a Marine Cobra pilot who died heroically while flying a combat mission in Iraq.
Even a year after it's happened, you know, every day is just so tough to get through. There's always constant memories, but then you come out here and see something like this that people are doing for your son and other soldiers, that other servicemen. It makes it easier.
It brings a tear to my eye to see people come together. We bury a lot of folks here. We did a funeral yesterday. And this is a good opportunity to do something other than bury our comrades, to pay honor and respect them. And so it's kind of a special moment today. I'm a Vietnam era draftee. When I came back to the United States, we didn't wear uniforms. We were instructed to take our uniforms off. Now, wherever I go, we get a lot of support. Everybody, I believe, understands that these men and women give everything for their country, and this is an opportunity, I think, just to give a little bit back.
I watched this mother and a little boy place a wreath on one of the stones, and I remember thinking, someday when the words in his name are all worn off, there still will be someone who will come by and pay their respects to my son's memory. And this is the impact and the reason why I continue to work with Wreaths Across America
We've been laying wreaths here at Arlington since 1992. This is our 15th year. I'm from Harrington, Maine. Our business is making Christmas wreaths and other Christmas decorations. I wanted to give back, and it's because of the freedom that we all have. It's why I can do what I do. Everybody else can do what they do, but I just wanted to give back.
After 9/11, we all came together and remembered that we loved the country and we loved our freedom, and we understood that. And then, then we got busy again and got complacent. We're a grateful nation. We just got to show
I
it.
don't want to let my brother's name be forgotten. And nobody should let anybody that's killed over here their name forgotten or forgot what they did.
Ultimately, it's all about saying thank you to everyone in here.
In life, they honor their country. In death, their country honors them.
A beautiful gesture of gratitude for those who gave us the ultimate gift.
Hannah, you were there yesterday. What did it mean to you personally to be there in Arlington?
I think, I guess a tendency for us all is to listen to numbers. I mean, there are 2.7 million such graves in this country of people who died in service to our country. But you realize these are individuals. These are people with families and names. And you place a wreath on the grave of that World War II soldier that I did yesterday. And it just really hits you. And that's what their families want us to remember, that these are they don't want us to forget.
Well done.
And that's why we're doing it. My husband's a veteran. Her father died. And we want to remember him. And we want to cover all the graves, not just a few of them. Do you have anything to add to that, Arlene? Can I recap? Sure, go ahead.
So I just like to recap for a minute. In the DAR program, we have opportunities to provide service in a varied amount of ways. And this is the one project that we chose, knowing that because we wanted to do Iron County, that would be a significant project. We wanted to start out small, and that's why maybe you noticed in the nice Iron County Today paper, right down there was a nice article a couple of weeks ago about the program that was in Enoch. So as it is to develop through, we couldn't start with Cedar City because it was almost 1,000 veterans, and we're a very small organization. Our purpose is to see if you can help us advertise, help us maybe get individual donations, as well as take charge of the program that would be in Cedar City on the 19th of December. That is the National Day. Those wreaths are delivered by volunteers, veteran volunteers, and they send about 20 trucks across the nation to deliver those wreaths. And when it pulls up at Summit, then we helped unload those, and the nice people there sprayed them down and made them beautiful to put upon the graves. So the entire project, and maybe you heard the founder of that project talk a little bit, when he was developing Christmas wreaths to go up for his business, he had extra and he didn't know what to do with them. So he decided that he would take and just do a small portion, as many as they would fit on Arlington. When it started, there was only a tiny portion of Arlington that had a wreath for the veterans. And then it kind of mushroomed, and it has gone on and on and on. And so our purpose is to try to adopt Cedar City Cemetery, but we know we need a lot of support in the advertising and the donations. We're not asking the council for any money, but we're asking to see if you can maybe help us by your businesses, your friends, the advertising in the mayor's newsletter, on the marquees around town, if we can get that advertising going so that when it comes time to turn that in, right around Thanksgiving time, we'll have enough money for that. Thank you.
So I got a couple of questions for you. So you're asking for our support of the 802 or more graves for the Cedar City Cemetery. Is that correct?
Well, we actually want to cover all 4 cemeteries.
Yes, but are you reaching out to Enoch City
yes,
Council and to
yes.
Paragona's Town Council? And
correct.
Okay, great. And so in our neighborhood, it's going to be about $10,000 or something along those lines for Cedar City.
It probably about 8,000 because, as I say, we're doing
the
the
two
3
for-
for
yeah,
2.
yeah.
Yeah, for 2.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, it's I just want to say I had the opportunity to be in Enoch for the
Yes.
ceremony, and it was very moving. And Mr. Roberts did a beautiful job of addressing the importance of the military and the sacrifice they made. It was a very, very wonderful ceremony, and I'd love to see it happen in Cedar City. So I fully endorse this, and anything that I can do to help, I certainly will.
You can chair.
I don't want to chair.
Any other questions?
I might desk, but I don't want to chair.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. We'll move on to item number 2 on our agenda. Consider a single event alcohol permit for the SUU Art Museum on March 7th, 2020.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Farling, the Director Curator of Southern Utah Museum of Art on the SUU campus. This is an annual fundraiser that will be the 26th. It's the art auction. For those of you that have been in the community for a while, you might remember this being hosted up at Rusty's Ranch House. And last year we outgrew Rusty's, so now we have it on site. So we're going through all of the mountains of paperwork for the DABC to get a single event permit so we can have a cash bar at our fundraiser on March 7th. So before we can proceed, just need to make sure that everything's okay here locally. And I think you did a background check on me.
Darren Adams with the police department. That's correct. We did a background and there are no concerns. We would give it a positive recommendation.
All right. Does council have any comments, questions?
No, it's a great
Good with
event.
this going on the consent?
Right. I did have one citizen reach out to me, and I have no qualms about this, but it was more about the process. They were shocked that this is something that the council has to approve, maybe for their benefit and anyone else's. Why is it that the alcohol permits are required to be approved by the council instead of perhaps a more streamlined process?
It's based on state law.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can't go through the specifics of that. I just know that's part of the requirements to get that approval. You have to have the local governing body give their thumbs up.
Okay.
Yeah, so just part of the larger form we have to fill out for the state.
Okay, perfect. That's what I'll let them know. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we need to go to the legislature on this.
I know. Let's go. All right. Any other questions?
Thank you
Comments?
very much.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Appreciate it.
All right. Item number 3, request to hook into the city's water outside of the city limits in the vicinity of 3437 East Highway 14.
Hello, my name is Jeremy Laws. I've been a resident of Cedar City for approximately 28 years. I've printed out a kind of a plan scope of what we had for property. It was just kind of a quick draw out, and the second one that I brought in just the other day, and I thank you, Renan, for getting that passed through to everybody. So I was just a little bit off on that one, but so we have a 9.5 acre parcel up Cedar Canyon. That's about exactly 5 miles up Cedar Canyon. I'm looking to build a home there for me and my family, and I was hoping to get a water meter put in place for that 9.5 acres up there. I've talked to Robbie Mitchell a couple times through the years, and he said that cannot be done. And I'm just kind of here to find out curiously why it can't be done. And I mean, I would be willing to do, whatever it took, whatever the cost of money to be able to get the meter there. As you know, throughout town, properties are very expensive. And with this property being fully paid for, that would increasingly help my family be able to build us a little bit better house up on that property. So that's, I'm asking if it's a possibility, if it's workable to be able to get a water meter.
So what is the city regulations? Because this property is not in the city, correct?
It's 5 miles, I guess, outside, but
Of the
it's
city limits,
it's a
right?
city water line that goes up the canyon and feeds the other homes up there currently.
Right.
And that was my chief question was those other homes right there, what are they using for water?
So we'll go with Mr. Phillips first. The city ordinance prohibits water connections outside of the city limits. So the idea is that we as a municipality provide water to our residents. We don't sell it. We're not the Water Conservancy District. We don't sell it to everybody outside of our city limits. There's a limited exception if you live in the city and you're going to water your stock watering. You can truck some water from your home to your cows during the summer, but we're pretty strict on not selling water outside the city limits. Now, Mr. Melling's question is there's some residents up there that we supply. I think that's under a contract from a long, long time ago. It's pre-Robbie and pre-me and probably even pre-Kit. So that's a long time ago. There was a plan submitted to Iron County to do a RV park. Is this the same property?
No.
This is different property.
It's further up the canyon. Like I say, from basically the city park, it's exactly 5 miles up the canyon, basically straight across from Right-Hand Canyon turnoff.
And is there a reason you can't dig your own well?
I don't have any water rights, nor do I know of anybody that would be able to willingly sell water rights for up in that area. I do believe the wells that were currently up there are sold to the city. It was my pass through of understanding from just talking to people around town.
I don't think we have culinary wells up there. We might have purchased water rights at one time. I don't know.
No, we don't. So probably met you with the water department. So a little background. Years ago, before my time, Kit's time, like Paul said. So the residents up there and Milts used to have their own well, and they'd pump that well into a water tank and then supply their own houses with it. They were having problems with their system when the city ran the new spring line down through there. The residents gave the city their water rights and their wells with an agreement to hook on to the water that the city was, the spring lines that were going down through there. So that's how the residents are there have the connections now because of that agreement. Like I said, they gave up the water rights and their wells for that. About 8 years ago, 10 years ago, the city had to go in because that water was not chlorinated. By law, we have to supply chlorinated water. So we put a 2-inch line that goes from our chlorinator up to Mills. So there is a 2-inch line that feeds up there. Right now, you've got 6 homes and a restaurant off of a one 2-inch connection that feeds all the way up there. So another thing to think about. But that's a little history of why the people that have water up there have it and why nobody else that's up there that's out of the city falls under the restrictions of you're out of the city limits. We can't supply your water.
So do we have any, are there other people planning on developing up there in the future? What's our long-term strategy for that area? I know it's not city now. Is there a plan to annex that?
Our annexation policy plan doesn't go up the canyon that far.
Okay.
I'm not sure. We might go up the canyon a little ways, but we're not even close to this.
Right. Yeah, it's quite a ways up.
Yeah.
It's considered Iron County up there, and that's, the Water Conservancy. I mean, obviously they don't have anything to do with it. So it's like, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I guess my 9.5 acres is like worth nothing, that I can't do anything. I mean, technically I can't build anything on that property at this point with no water, like nothing.
Yeah.
Have you looked into buying a water right from someone?
I've actually talked to, like I say, some of the older farmers and whatnot within the area, and they are not willing to sell any kind of water right that goes up to that canyon. Specifically, I guess, for cattle purposes was my understanding from them. So that's kind of where I was at with that one, but I really, I haven't dug any further past that. That's why I'm here tonight, to find out if it's feasible to be able to service that property from the city water line.
Have you checked with the Water Conservancy District to see if there's any?
Yeah, they don't do
anything. They don't have anything in that area, do
not
they?
Of that parcel of the canyon, no. That's the
So-
only downfall.
Right, because they're the ones that would normally supply that outside of the
Yes.
cities.
And with
So-
the taxes and everything that go up there, and that's what's so funny is the Water Conservancy District still charges on the taxes for the Water Conservancy, even though it's not being, water from the Conservancy District themselves. So
Yeah, and
we all pay it.
Yeah, if you build up there, you're going to be paying it, or if your property is going to be paying it because we all pay it.
so I'm kind of thinking out loud here, but so basically we've got either connecting to city water or digging a well and acquiring your own rights, which cost you, I don't know, what is that, 40, 50K roughly, probably for that.
yeah,
Is that
I'm
about
sure
what it is to dig a culinary well these days?
I'm sure it's roughly
And-
to that. And so that was another thing I was
Robbie,
going to
do you
bring
know
up.
what it
Like,
is
so
to
if I'm
dig a
spending
well?
that kind of money
And then,
trying to, I'd end up just trying to purchase a lot outside.
and I'm not 100% sure on the, regulations on catching precipitation, but I think for 40, 50K, there's a number of videos I know I've looked into with some people in Arizona that they're based in 12 inches of precipitation a year, and they're catching all of their household water on that just through different catchment methods, and I know there's some regulations on that in Utah, but you might even, just as a practical standpoint, that's probably better than digging a well for up there.
Yeah, I've actually thought about that. The only problem is county code won't
Right.
allow that.
They won't, and they won't give you an exception because this is a
I've
weird.
spoken to Terry over there, and they absolutely will not allow that. It has to be culinary water.
Really?
So, yeah.
Well, if I'm understanding what Robbie said, the 2-inch line won't even service if we were even inclined to approve it. Is that correct, Kid? Or
Probably have to do a study. Like I said, when we put it in, we just calculated what was already there because we didn't figure any future growth being up there. But there is a 10-inch water line down by the chlorinator. I mean, if it was ever granted, he could just have to run it a long ways down to get a service line. But as of right now, there's only a 2-inch line that runs from our chlorinator, which is just down from the turnoff right there, maybe a mile and a half, maybe not that far, a mile, up to Melts. So that's just what supplies them right now.
I think it's important for cities to try to find ways to say yes. But we're kind of, this is an awkward situation too. I'd almost, and I'm speaking out, I'm kind of thinking out loud here, but I'd almost be inclined to maybe table this, and I would personally do what I can to see about helping you with the regulatory process, dealing with the county and water catchment. I think that's going to be a lot less expensive than digging a well. And there's tons of studies and resources on making that safe and for culinary use. If we can, and I'd be happy to work with you to try to, get as far as we can with the county before we order a city study on that, where, because as much as I'd like to say yes now, even if that's possible, there's a lot of other owners up there with undeveloped parcels. And at some point it does become too much of a load on that system. So I almost think unless we're willing to start supplying non-city customers on a regular basis up the canyon, which I think has its own problems, we might be better off trying to maybe help you out individually and working with the regulations with the county.
Okay.
The other thing you can consider, I know up on the mountain here and up at Bryan Head, there are houses that are not on the city water lines, and they actually have big water tanks that are in their garages or part of the houses, and they actually truck their own water.
Yeah, I've actually planned on having a water tank in the home anyway, just for that extra supply. But the only thing is where would I truck the water from? That's another issue.
Yeah, because you won't have another residence down here.
There are companies that will haul it for you.
What's that?
There are companies that will haul it for you.
Yeah. So and that was also a statement that I brought up to Terry with the county as well. And he said that absolutely cannot happen.
Really?
He was totally stickler on it. So, I mean, if you guys are willing to help me go in and talk to Terry with Iron County, I'm all for it because I'll haul my water.
I know it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, just about every, what is that, Ingolstadt Estates, there's no water there.
Yeah.
They all truck their water.
Correct.
So.
Yeah, I've got quite a few friends that are.
And that's
up
Iron
there.
County, correct?
Yes.
Is Ingolstadt. So.
For now, do you just want this tabled?
Yeah, could we table this and
Yeah,
then
we
if
can
if
just
you could
table
leave
this
your,
and then,
if you could leave your contact information and I could give you a call and.
That would be
I'd
fantastic.
love to do that.
I appreciate it very
You have
much.
something to write on and give that to me.
No,
here.
I can write on this.
You have a business card? You
just ran out.
There's that and that. All right. Item number 4, consider vicinity plan for Jupiter Grove subdivision located at approximately 1575 South, 1200 West.
Just name it.
Dallas Buckner, Go Civil. So this is a vicinity plan that we received a positive recommendation from Planning Commission on. It's zoned R22. It's duplex lots, roughly 9 acres in size, 20 total lots for 20 total duplex lots. So 40 units total could fit on there.
Dallas, I noticed there was some discussion in the planning meeting about roads and size of roads and standard roads. And do I understand correctly, because it's not a PUD, these will meet all the city standard road sizes and curb and gutters, sidewalk, that whole thing, correct?
Correct. Yep. And part of the discussion was also, I believe the road that's in there existing, if we were to look at Google Earth, I think it was just a double chip seal road.
Right.
And Kit brought that up. So that'll have to be brought up to standard. But yes, it'll all be city roads, city standard roads within the subdivision.
And you feel like with the studies you've done, the drainage will be okay, whether it goes to the Green Lake side or down on the other?
We'll have to look at it. One of the things that Kit brought up in the Planning Commission that was interesting that I hadn't thought of yet was draining to this ditch, right? Because there's a big drainage ditch right there. So we might look at doing that. The only water that's going to go down would be from this phase. Everything for the future would go down to Green Lake Drive.
Gotcha.
And so I don't anticipate it being a ton of water, but during the downstream analysis, if we have to get creative, then we will. As far as how we address that.
And you're looking at what, about 20 twin homes?
It's 20 lots, so it'd be 40.
40, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Are there any other comments, questions?
Just want to point out that on the north side of this subdivision, there's a corridor with public utility easements and power easements. Cattle trail goes through there, and then also we've got a master planned city trail that'll be going through that corridor right there. So,
and the developer's aware of that and is fine.
They are, and ultimately what we'd like to do is, because the developer owns all the way to, I forget which phase this is, but the southern view. And so there's an 82-foot wide livestock easement right there, and that's where the line's drawn to. But ultimately we'd like to deed that whole piece either to the city or to the livestock, whoever would be willing to take it on, just because we don't want these lot owners and the developer doesn't want to hold on to it. So that would be the goal. And so when we get into construction drawings and final plat, we were going to have that discussion with the city.
They don't have to take care of the weeds that way.
Right.
I had a question about the trail going through there because it talked about a wall going along the side of the PUD there. Will we end up with a walled in trail system going through there, or?
I guess it mostly depends what these lot owners do. There is a wall that goes down through here now, just on the north side of that
will.
corridor. So if these guys put a wall in, it's going to be a wide corridor. So probably it's not going to be like you're walking down through a tunnel or anything.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 82 feet, so it's pretty good size. And I would assume that the developer would want to put something in there just because of the cattle trail and having the potential of livestock coming into your backyard.
Yeah.
So I would assume that we end up with a block wall there,
but 82 feet's pretty good size.
Yeah, that's pretty good size. I thought maybe it was just the width of that dirt road that went down through there now, but it must be quite a bit wider.
And so there's, like Kit mentioned, there's the 82-foot wide overall trail, or the 82-foot wide livestock easement, and then within there's a gas power, and then there's also the master plan trail. So there's a lot of stuff, a lot of room in there.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
All right. We good with this going on consent?
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right. Consider restricted parking along College Ave for East Elementary School for student pickup.
Hello, Hunter Shaheen, Iron County School District. We met with Chief Adams down here a little while back. We've talked about some of the issues that we've been having down there with the south parking lot. It's a very small parking lot. It's designated as staff, but what we have been having is a lot of parents trying to pull in that small lot and go 2 and 3 wide in that small parking lot to try and drop off kids for the kindergarten classes and the other classes on that wing. We've had a lot of near misses with students nearly being run over by mom on this side waving at their kid and starting while the parent on this side lets their kid out in front of them. And it's just been pretty chaotic. So we asked Mike Schertz from the fire department, as well as Todd Holbein, the state fire marshal, to come and look. We've since closed that parking lot off with some rolling gates based on their approvals and their recommendations. By doing such, we've further congested Center Street with all these parents trying to come along on the Center Street. So it creates some issues there with the people on 200 East trying to pull onto Center Street because the parents back up there. So we visited with Kit and the police department about creating a no parking area or a restricted parking area where parents could still pull, let their kids out on the sidewalk, and then continue to move on once they've dropped off or picked up on the south side on College Avenue. So that's the point we're at right now, trying to see if we can create another parent pickup and drop off zone.
You want to do it on the south side of the street, not the north side?
Well, it's the north side of the street, just the south side of the school. Sorry.
South side of the school.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
There's too many easts and norths and souths in this district. So,
Yeah. Hunter, can you tell me, is this a similar situation that we sort of dealt with over on North Elementary a little while ago, and all those parents pulling up there? And
our main issue is this: we're dealing with 70-year-old infrastructure. It was never intended to put, at the old North Elementary, South Elementary, East Elementary, the quantity of parent traffic that's coming. For whatever reason, it's become taboo and unpopular to put your kid on the bus.
that was my question.
And
because
so
that school's been there for
the
years.
majority of parents want to drive their kids to school. The other difficult part that we have at East Elementary is that it houses our Spanish dual immersion program. For those that qualify to get into the Spanish dual immersion program, you have to provide your own transportation to the site. And so right now we are currently, a few years back, it started in first grade and then became a first and second grade. We're currently all 5 grades right now have dual immersion programs. So your first through 5th grade in dual immersion programs with that quantity of parents that are now forced to transport their children to school. Myself being one of them. And so we have to find a carpool. We have to try and find a way to get our second grader to and from there. But it's just become extremely congested with the infrastructure that we have. We came in a few years back and we extended this. So this is an old picture. Currently, we extended this driveway and this parent parking to the driveway now comes all the way to this point. So we've created a longer spot to stage vehicles. But when you're talking that quantity, it's just still not sufficient. So, the argument that we probably face, when it comes to this at the school district more than anything is you need to build bigger parking lots. Well, the trade-off then is we build less playground.
Yeah.
And that's not a popular, it's not a popular point to make that we'd rather have parking lots than green space for the kids to get out and move. So it's just, we're trying to find, the best scenario that we can to service the problem.
Hunter, do you want something similar to student drop-off pickup zone, no parking 8 to 4?
Yeah, that's what we had looked at was, now, again, I know that we had, some considerable conversation in the planning commission about, well, if you paint it red curb and put no parking, it's going to deter parents from pulling there to drop their child off. The signage that we typically use within the school district, our sign clearly says parent pickup, student pickup, drop off zone, driver must stay with the vehicle. So you can't pull in and get out and leave. If you're in your vehicle and you're dropping off and moving, you can be in that area. So, depending on what we need to do to meet law and ordinance, we just need to have a zone that we can keep people out of so parents can pull in and park and move. So if the 8 to 4 no parking works, as long as we can still move traffic through there as a pickup zone, that's ultimately what we're asking for.
How do the neighbors respond to this, or have they reacted, and how do they feel about it?
They have not, and there was considerable conversation. Again, when we first looked at it, the principal and staff there were saying, well, can we make College Avenue a one-way street so there's less? We didn't feel we wanted to take that to the neighborhood. We didn't want to try and tell a neighborhood like this that, hey, we're making it one way now, so you've come and gone a specific direction for 100 years. You can't do that now. So we typically don't see, from what we have gauged as we've studied this and looked at it over the last probably 3 or 4 months, we don't typically see much traffic that's not school staff on the north side of College Avenue. All of the people that live in the residences here, they're typically on the south side.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't feel that we would be infringing too much on the neighborhood by asking for that zone to be, a parent pickup and drop off area.
Would this be a red zone? Would it be a yellow drop-off zone? What would it be?
You're gonna have to look in the big book of traffic control stuff.
Yeah.
So under UDOT, they require, if it's a busing area, they do require the fluorescent green, fluorescent yellow paint.
But if
If
we want to enforce it, there's got to be, it's got to be approved by the city council.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't know which color yet, but Kit has a traffic control manual, and it has
As
all
long as
sorts
it's
of-
something obnoxious.
Yeah, like a bright
So I
fluorescent
know it's 6 o'clock.
orange.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
are we good with this? I mean, no matter what, this will go on the action agenda for next week.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you, Hunter.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 6, consider leasing property on Highway 14 west of Right Hand Canyon Road for advertising. I don't know which one of you want to come up. If Tyler wants to start, who wants to start?
I'll
Vern?
give a quick update. So I spoke with Susan Parker today. She works for UDOT. Just wanted to confirm everything that we were being told by Mr. Roberts, and that is the case. It's a scenic byway, Highway 14. So they're not allowing any new signs to go along their highway. So essentially, the city council really has 2 options tonight. One would be either to prohibit any sort of advertising, when we would ask Coldwell Banker to remove that sign because there isn't a lease in place, or to allow a lease to be put in place. And Mr. Roberts and I, as legal counsel, we could figure out what the terms of that lease would be and present it to the city council for approval. There would be no point in offering it to anyone outside of Coldwell Banker because legally they would not be allowed to put in a new sign.
So as we've looked at our archives, there is no agreement that was struck when we got real estate, and
Yeah,
No.
there is nothing.
we can't find anything.
So for the last however many years it's been since the sign's been there, and I'm not sure how long that's been, but when Caldwell Banker has gotten this sign permit, who have they listed as the owner of property or lease on the property?
I don't know. We'd have to ask them.
Well, let's ask them.
They tried to pull the permit for me, but they said it was so old they were going to go back to filing cards to see if they could find the original, and I told her not to.
All right, Burns.
I was gonna bring Jason, and we have our own actor with us, and in many movies, so I made him come in, but he could play a lawyer.
Yes, he could.
You still have to say your name.
There is no lease, and that.
You still have to say your name
Oh,
for the
I'm
record.
sorry. My name is Scott Burns. I represent Dan Roberts and Coldwell Bankers and Marcus Hanson. I've researched this issue, and myself and Jack Burns have done a number of work for them over the years. And the strange part of this is there is no lease, which actually helps the Roberts, because to have a prescriptive easement, it has to be adverse to what would be normally a permissive use. So if the city, in our opinion, had a lease and it allowed them to have this lease, they would not be adverse, because what they've been doing is they've had that sign there for more than 20 years, and it has been without the permission of or payment to or any agreement with the city. And so I think I mean, the third option obviously is to pursue some type of prescriptive easement. Mr. Roberts doesn't want to do that. He wants to do whatever he can to get along with the city. And I'm with Ron. That sign's been there. That sign's been there 60 years that he's been alive. And so, yeah, I think they believe they have a property interest. If the definition of property under the law, first year law school, is the expectation of the continuing benefit of a thing. You have an expectation that you're going to have the continuing benefit, that your car is going to be out there, and when you get out there, you get to get in it and start it. You expect that. That's a property right. Or your home, you're going to be there. And we believe they've had the expectation of the continuing benefit of that sign for more than 20 years. And the research that we did, likewise, there was no agreement. We tried to go back and find from Clayton Frainer when and I don't know if he sold to the city or simply deeded to the city. Were you able to find that out? Does anybody know that?
Oh, I haven't been able to find anything. I don't know if the city staff has. I'm interested to know, Mr. Burns, when Mr. Roberts has been, and I feel bad, Mr. Roberts, you're right here. I feel like I'm talking to the third person over there. When he's been doing the permitting to the state each year, who has been listed as the lease owner of the property on which the sign is placed?
I don't think there's ever been a lease.
They don't ask that.
And they don't ask. It's been there so long that they recognize it as an exception to the scenic byway. The state of Utah did.
Yeah, when I looked at the permit was pulled from the owner of the sign. There was no reference to an owner of the property, which
That
is
was
kind of unusual. But
79, I think, is when they recognized that sign could be there. 81 was when they completely enacted the scenic byway, and after 81, no more signs. And that we know that was there in 79, 89, 99, 40 years ago.
So when I spoke with the people at UDOT, they told me that, and I don't know what records they were looking at, but they said the owner of property was listed as a Mr. Robert Dillman out of Las Vegas, Nevada. So that's what they had on record.
When was Dillman? Go ahead.
So somebody is, I don't know, different people are looking at different files.
Will you state your name too, Dan?
He knows that we discussed the Dillman.
Dan Roberts. Just a little background. Corey, DW Corey. I don't know if anybody in here remembers DW or not.
I do.
A few of us do that are 70. And but anyway, that's Clayton Frainer's father-in-law. Okay. And Corey Realty was one of the very first real estate companies in Cedar City. DW Corey owned that whole 40 acres that we've been talking about. Okay. And it just happens to come over the highway, and there was just this little corner that ended up being deeded to the city. Okay. And if any of you remember Clayton or how he is, he probably just, or DW Corey, he just probably gave the ground to the city. I don't know if there's any contract or not, but I know that it was deeded to the city for that. And then subsequently, they sold the rest of the acreage there to other people, down through the years. But I got involved with real estate with Clayton Frainer and bought into his business back in 19. And I hate to say how far back, but it's 91. Okay. And so anyway, that there's always been a satellite office from Coldwell Banker on the mountain. And so what I perceive that happened, and I can't substantiate it because I can't find any records, okay, that D.W. Corey deeded it to the city. City needed it for the chlorination plant. And so I think probably the deal that was made, can we keep our sign here if we deed it to the city? And so I don't think that there's any agreement, but whatever it is, I like what you said, Mr. Romeril. If I would like to keep our sign there, and if we can come to an agreement with the lease amount, if that's what we need to do, I'd be happy to do that. But it's something that that permit can't be given out to anybody in the future. Okay, if it's if it happens to be, if that's the case that you're saying, I'm happy to do that. You know, come under some kind of lease agreement, and so that we all feel good. So, but anyway, it won't go to anybody else because we control the permit, as far as I know. So anyway, that's the genesis of it. It was D.W. Corey's in the first place.
What about Dillman? Where do we find him?
Oh,
Yeah, Robert
Dillman.
Dillman.
I think when I was here, first of all, Roger Dillman says that's my property, and you can use that all you want. Okay, and Roger, he's passed away now. Okay, but he owns the property that comes into it on the south side, and he thought it was his property.
So he thought he owned that property, but indeed he didn't. Correct.
Right. He didn't own it, and so.
He did, though. He thought he owned it.
Oh yeah, he thought he owned it, and so anyway, I thought I was good to go. Because Roger Dillon says, and you can see he owns all that ground going back up the north side of Cedar Mountain. Okay, a lot of ground right there. But Roger's dead now. He died about a year ago, and so here we are.
Well, I know with any kind of advertising, it's very difficult to sort of decide the overall effect that advertising may provide to a business, but yet you have to advertise to stay in business.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I personally struggle with having signage on our beautiful U14, and we all tout how beautiful our area is to live in, and we love it. And yet we've got to be careful about how we maintain it and what happens in the next 30 years with people moving here and wanting to buy more homes up there. And we heard tonight of a homeowner wanting to build up there. And I just worry about what's going to happen to our beautiful Cedar Canyon in the next few years. So I really struggle with the idea of having it there. And I guess maybe, I don't know if you have any way of calculating this. What is the overall effect you think that signage provides to your company as a whole, to Coldwell Banker?
It's really hard to say.
I know.
Name
recognition, certainly,
and all that. You know, it's been part of our company for over 40 years.
Yeah, sure.
So, I mean, it just isn't 20 years back. It's back to 1979, okay, or before that, when Clayton D.W. Corey owned it.
Right.
And so I don't know how to put a figure on that. I just, I know that no more can be given. There's not another. So it's unfortunate how this all happened, or we'd be fine.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm a team player. You guys know that.
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
not here against the city, but if that could be handled that way, be happy to pay whatever you want to keep our sign there and continue to do what we've done for a long time.
You better not say whatever we want.
Well, and I'd be, my thoughts are maybe a little different than yours on this one, Scott, but what I think so where this is a program that's not expanding, right? It's a discontinued state program, where we're not already seeing revenue from it. I'd be almost more inclined in whatever contract negotiations Tyler undertakes to maybe try to negotiate a lower lease amount in favor of prioritizing some kind of sunset date. This perhaps the sooner the better, just to get us out of the marketing and sign rental business. And who knows what's going to come of that property that we own. And so I would like to see potentially a 10-year or shorter cap on this lease, and in favor of that, maybe negotiating a lower rent payment for that, and then at the end of that period, have it sunset and discontinue that use. I know there's negotiating and stuff, but that's kind of where my mind's at. Is I would rather just see us get out of that business at some point in the future. So if the use changes,
That might be a
we're
compromise
okay.
that we could look at,
What do you mean, like, get out of the business, I guess?
Oh, we don't want to be leasing to anybody. Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree with that. If it's 10 years, I looked at my driver's license and I thought, it's hard to admit how old you are anymore. But anyway, I'd be willing to, negotiate like something like that.
Could you tell me, Dan, the sign itself, is it a wood sign? Is it wood with
It's wood
vinyl
and
over it? I
metal.
can't remember.
It's got, it's cemented in.
I mean, I've
pipe.
seen it. I just don't recall.
Yeah, it's substantial, and it's basically 12 by 20.
What kind of condition is it in right now?
Good. I need to replace, it fades after a while, but
Sure.
Depending on the sunlight, but structurally it's in good condition.
So is it painted on metal or is it vinyl?
Oh, it's usually what Rainbow does. They'll take a 4x8 sheet of plywood and computerize the sign and print it,
Okay.
and then hang it up there.
Okay.
So anyway.
For what it's worth, we were talking about signs, and this isn't Dan, but remember many years ago, you had a prior city council and city attorney when there was the thought of the city doing the brave thing that they do in Sedona and Park City, and we're talking about signs. Here we are in Cedar City, just like every other town, and they go up, and some of them are ugly and some of them are uglier. And so I don't know what the city's, when Dan was talking about his sign, I thought, wow, there's a few in town I would love to not lease or not have or not do, but just as a comment from a citizen, because
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, it's something else. Anyway, that's all I have.
Okay, thanks. Any questions for me? I'm just happy to cooperate.
Do you want?
So I'll just make one statement just for the council to consider over the next week. Mr. Burns and I, we would disagree on how prescriptive easements apply to government property. Well, I wanted to blindside you in the public. So that's just something to consider. I'm not saying that to push you one way or the other. I just think we have firm legal ground to
I'm glad
stand
you got
by.
that in.
Either way.
I'm sorry, we got all the lawyers in the room. Can somebody really describe, so I understand what a
I was
prescriptive
gonna say,
easement is?
do you want this actually like explained?
I do. I do.
Dare I? So I'm the freshest out of law school, right? So now they.
Tyler, we
I
need to
think
let
I'll
Tyler
sit
go.
down and listen
Yeah,
to
let's
this.
let's have Tyler. Yeah, your case.
I'm not the city.
Better law school than all.
I'm not the city attorney.
Oh, good one.
You were surfing that afternoon.
I might have been.
Perhaps. Just an idea.
You went to a better law school too.
So a couple years ago, to refresh City Council's memory, do you remember we had a discussion with Raymond Prestwich concerning an easement, a water line that we had behind Sportsman's Warehouse?
Mhm.
So the city has a water line in there, and there's no record of easement that we have legal authority to be in there. So Utah state law sees that these things come up from time to time. So they've given they've given owners of perceived easements the ability to have one in the future. So they need to have it for a minimum of 20 years. They need to use that easement open and obvious to the public. We're not, utilizing it in the cover of night. And we use it in a way that over a period of time, the state law says that you now have a vested right. So we have a vested right to use that for a water line. We can't put a walking path, can't do a walking path or anything. We can't expand it. We can use it solely to maintain it. And so that is usually done between private property owners. Case law has cut out an exception saying, well, because it's government property, we're not going to allow that to happen to the government.
And my own response would be is one government has, and that would be the state of Utah in 1979. And then they passed a law after that said no more on scenic byways, but you have a vested right, Coldwell Bankers. Your sign is there. We're making an exception for you. And I don't know if it's Exhibit 5 or 8, but it lists those in the state of Utah that meet that exception under the state of Utah authorization to have that sign there. So maybe it would be the state of Utah's acknowledgement of that non-conforming use versus the city statute the council cites that says you can do what the king can do, whatever the queen can do, whatever she wants, which is the government. And can the queen say, remove your sign, you have no right? And so that would be the argument.
Gotcha.
But to me, the key elements are 20 years. Most of them can't meet that. The second thing is that it's been open and notorious, and I'm not going to take issue with the water line being as open and notorious as a sign. I don't think anything could be more open and notorious. And there it's been, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, somebody says, hey, we want to take that sign down. And so does the property owner have the right to say, really? Can the queen do that? And so I think that would be the argument. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Is there other direction you want from them? Is there any
I
other?
just want to know if you want to stay or go.
Yeah, so the question for next week for the council to decide is, does the sign stay and we work through a lease, or does it go?
And the vote next week would not be on those terms, just whether we go forward with the lease.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, and then if you do decide to go forward, then you give some guidelines and Tyler gets to draft up a lease.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
this will go on the action agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very
All right.
much.
Item number 7, consider disposing of city property located at 100 West, 300 West along Coal Creek Road.
My name is Mike Green with Geo Green Enterprises. I got an email about an hour and a half ago from my father in Antarctica.
Oh.
And he got an email a couple hours earlier from Tyler saying we should be here in case you had questions. I'm not sure if you understand the proposal, if I should go through it. I mean, in basic terms, the property on Coal Creek Road and then the sliver just south of the red line, we purchased 25 years ago from the railroad. At the time, the railroad people said, when the railroad is removed, we'll sell you the other piece. Obviously, 25 years, a lot of people move and change. And we've approached them.
Do you have anything on record?
Well, no. My dad wasn't great with paper. Yeah, come on over. But we approached the railroad probably 12 times since then to sell us the property, and they weren't interested. They wanted to sell a larger piece, and the city ultimately bought it. Our intention the whole time was to build and develop that into some commercial space, and it's kind of hard to do without that piece in the middle of our two parcels. So we're hoping that the city will sell it to us.
Are you looking here at both the 200
Here.
piece and the
No,
100 piece?
no, where is the
There's a little green button. on
green
there.
button?
Yep.
So this is the piece that matters to us.
Okay.
So we own this piece right here. We own that piece right there.
Right.
And if we can combine it together, it'd be really great commercial space for a strip mall or a warehouse or anything else that comes down the pipe. Without it, I guess I got a little piece here that could be something.
Could put a sign there.
I could put a sign there.
So,
Yeah.
so Mr. Green, I'm going to ask the question, and I know you cannot speak for your father who's in Antarctica,
Yes.
but I think with the city's intent with this property was that we were going to develop it into some kind of a trail or a walking thing or something along those lines.
Yep.
Time frame, don't know, but we were going to do that.
Sure.
If we were to dispose of this property, I understand the ramifications, what we're talking about. I want to know that you're going to do something with it. So
Sure.
it doesn't stay just a weed patch and a mess in our city.
Well, I can't tell you I'm going to do it next year. Obviously, there's a lot of things that happen in the business environment that make it so that I can or can't do it. I would love to see it done in the next 5 years. That's my goal.
Okay.
How long my father lives could affect that. Just saying. These
You're gonna ditch and
these
run when he's
parcels
gone?
throughout this area, I own some of them. He owns some of them. We, have some involvement in each other's business, but I can't tell him what to do with.
No, I understand. I want to make sure that if we make this decision, that it's going to be for the betterment of the city.
Sure. Well, absolutely. I mean, if that's a trail right there, then this is going to continue to be our junkyard, and that's going to be a dirt lot that, has some
I just
weeds.
don't want to move your junkyard closer to Coal Creek.
Oh, well, it won't. Certainly not. We'd like to get rid of it. In fact, I don't know if he's talking about buying this to move the junkyard there so that this can be developed. But it looks like the trail system right now comes along. Mm-hmm. It comes down there and it would continue that way. So this little spur doesn't really add anything to the trail system. The path is pretty defined.
One of my questions in reading, and this might be a question for Tyler, in reading the minutes from the planning and zoning meeting, there was a question brought up about notice to neighboring lot owners, and that wouldn't be required in this case. I just want to make sure everything looks, whether or not we're meeting the minimum of the law, that it looks above board. So could you just fill us in on standard procedure here? And
So city policy for disposing property, if the council were to vote tonight to move forward, we would get appraisals. Then I'd get that appraisal, I'd put it into an RFP. I would then make sure notice was sent directly to those who have vocalized an interest. And then I would post it as well in the paper, state's notice website. But there's nothing that requires me to go out and hunt down property owners that haven't voluntarily come forward.
so those would be considered extraordinary measures far beyond any ethical requirement.
Yeah, it's just something we haven't done.
Okay.
And all the property owners are aware. Obviously, these guys right here have showed some interest in bidding on that as well. This property is for sale. This property is ours. That's ours. All of this is ours, and almost all of this. So there's not really any property owners in the area that would be affected.
Kingdom you're building there, Mr. Green.
Well, we've been at it for 30 years.
Yes, you have.
We took some old buildings in the old part of town and we made it into something.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes, you have.
So just a quick recap from Planning Commission. At that meeting, it was kind of mutually agreed that Mr. Green would want from 100 to 200. And Mr. Bronsma, who can't be here tonight, he would like to have a chance to bid on from 200 to 300. After that meeting, there's a gentleman, I can't remember your name. Shane came forward and he wants to purchase a little sliver from 300, in between 300 and 400. So I'll let him address the council on that.
Can we deal with all of these in three separate rather than one?
We can. We're going to have to figure out how we're going to do the appraisal. If we're just going to do one appraisal and the parties can split the costs, or each one gets their own. I mean, we'll kind of figure that one out.
Because we may wish to dispose of some and not others.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so all parties are aware there's no guarantee that the city will agree to sell it once the appraisal's done, right? I mean, you could bid on the RFPs and the council could decide, well, we just don't want to sell right now. So you run the risk of footing a bill for an appraisal and not ending up with the property.
well, we've been waiting 30 years for this and we're committed to it. So whatever it takes. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shane Baker. So I wanted to buy a little tiny piece right along here. So I've recently acquired, this is the lot that Dave Hughes had his photography studio at for many years. And I just acquired that from him, and I want to build an RV park in there. And the lot on this side is curved, kind of following this trajectory. And I just want to buy a little sliver along there to square off the property. If I don't get it, then some of these slots here for the RV parking at the end will be kind of narrow. So or not narrow, but shallow. So if I can get just a little bit there, it would make it much nicer. And as was mentioned before, as I understand it, the city's plan was to have there's already existing trail along here, and the bridge was to eventually bring it over and continue the trail along here. So there should be plenty of land there for me to take a little bit, and for there still to be a trail and decorative trees or whatever in there. So Kit, if you can go to the next slide, just where it's showing what I'm asking for. So that's just a little sliver that I was hoping to pick up along there. It's 3,900 square feet. So not very much.
How deep is it the widest?
In this section right here?
22 feet.
22.
Oh, sorry.
feet.
I couldn't see that. Excuse me.
That's it.
That's why I have you here.
Yeah, I'm the numbers guy.
All right.
So sometime after the city acquired the title to this property, we started getting contacted by various landowners in the area. Mr. Green's father was one of the landowners. Various landowners had various requests to acquire part of that right-of-way from us. The response from the city at that point was, we need to plan out what we're going to do with the land before we start selling it off. So Mr. Green's father came to the council in November-ish, somewhere in that time frame, and made a pitch to get the process started. And when the city looked at it at that point, and Kenny took it to the Trails Committee, and the city kind of looked at it and thought, well, okay, the piece Mr. Green's looking at, what's the chances of us actually getting that trail on that side of the road to get all the way through to Main Street? If you look to the east of the piece that Mr. Green wanted, you've got Decor Works sitting there. What's the chances of us getting a trail through Decor Works? And probably slim to none. And nobody really wants to go through the middle of Decor Works to put a trail in. So we started the process with Mr. Green on that piece between 100 and 200. It's now grown to the 200 to 300. And even if we, as a city, say, okay, we will start at 300 and head west with the trail from there, because there's the bridge just a couple hundred feet away. Before we start chopping up any of the land going west from 300, I really think we need to plan out what we want to do with it. We might not need the 3,000 square feet that you want to purchase. We might have plenty of room there for whatever we want to do there, but we don't even know what we want to do there yet as an organization. So that would be my only caveat to expanding this disposal any further to the west.
Don't we have preliminaries, Kit, from 300 to Airport Road?
Well, very preliminary. I mean, it's just architect's drawing, basically.
That would be the biggest concern. We don't want to chunk into our planned trail. Trails Committee would not like that at this point, because they've been looking forward to connecting, from the bridge to Airport Road for a long time since we acquired the railroad property back. So if it doesn't affect that, that is a wider area there where that, where you're talking about there may be room to do.
It is a little bit wider there. The rail yard has had the railroad's had a fenced in
that.
facility right there, and the depth back from Coal Creek Road is, or I'm sorry, from Industrial is pretty
They
wide.
have that offloading station, yeah.
So I'm not saying that we don't do it. I'm just saying right now, let's figure out what we're going to do with our part first, and then if we can accommodate this, then we can look at it.
What kind of a time frame do you think we're talking about to do something like that? Even if it's a draft, so we can let this gentleman know one way or the other.
And
he's
so
not
he can start
dangling.
paying taxes on it.
We could probably have something ready by your next work meeting, I would imagine.
Oh, okay, that's soon. Okay.
Yeah,
Mr. Baker, what's your timeline? When are you hoping to do this?
Well, I brought my checkbook, so I could pay it tonight if you said yes. I mean, just as soon as possible. I mean, I know you guys need to have your trail, and I respect that. I would actually love to have much more of that. In fact, I approached the railroad myself, and they said, "Sorry, we just barely sold it." So I was wanting the whole thing. So, I just had, Platt and Platt, when they drew this up, I just said, just square it off and, just be reasonable so that there's plenty of room. And I mean, I think just looking at it, when you go there and look at the place visually, I mean, there's ample room there for a trail. I don't know what else they're going to do there. I mean, the trail is going to be coming in from this side here. And then, so there's a lot of space there.
Yeah, at some point, whether it's at the north end of or the east end of the trail or the west end of the trail, we've got to have some sort of trailhead there. And this might be a good use
and
for
the
that.
crossover to
Lot
get
so
from the
deep.
bridge over to this place has to be thought through as well.
That lot's very deep right there. That piece of ground's pretty deep right there, and that might be where we want to put parking and a trailhead. And
Yeah.
Right. There's been some interesting personal pronouns used, your trail, our trail, and it's everybody's trail. It belongs to the taxpayers. And we have a taxpayer here that's wanting to improve his property. I'd be inclined to do what we can as soon as we can to see if we can make it easier for him to put his property to higher use and a higher tax bracket, and go from there. So that's kind of where my mind's at. I'd like to. I realize we've got a trail that we're working on, but let's try to do what we can to see if we can accommodate him as soon as possible.
you need to be aware that there's further landowners to the west that want to acquire parts of this too, and it's the guys that own the storage units down the road to the west. They want a bunch of it, and
but I
there's just been
recall
landowners all the way along that want part of it.
But the council did approve the master plan of an idea of a walking trail and a water feature going through there. If I remember, it was just 6 months ago or so that we did do that.
We had connecting roads and connecting
Uh-huh.
utility infrastructure coming through there as well.
Yep. One of the questions I have, and Tyler, you or Mr. Bittman may know, but weren't there conditions with the sale of this property from the railroad that we had to use it for certain things?
So the railroad has some prohibitions on what can be done in the future on that property. We have emailed those to the Greens. We haven't emailed them to you. You might want to look at them. The railroad's concerns are they've owned the property for over, 90, 100 years or whatever. They've used it for a heavy industrial use. There is, with railroad heavy industrial use over that period of time, there is a possibility that there's some contaminants. So they have put restrictions on what can be done on that property. If you leave me your email, I'll email that to you so you can look at that and see if it's even feasible for what you would like to do. But just know, even if the city sells it to you, it comes with those restrictions. We bought it with those restrictions. That's all we own, and that's all we can sell to you.
Got it.
Okay.
All right. So this will go on the action agenda.
Please save as many of those big mature trees as you can back there.
I know they're beautiful.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, you can come up, Dan.
Dan Roberts, if we go back to that last slide, Kit, about the trail, I just want you to know that IFA has an interest in acquiring at least half of it. They're north of the trail, and they're willing to split it with Black Cat. on the other side, so that the property line would come in the middle, okay?
Is Black Cat Mr. Bronsma's?
Yeah, that's Buzz, yeah. So, but anyway, they own all the property between 200 and 300 West IFA. And that property line goes right up against their building, and they'd like to cooperate with the other owner on the other side and to make the split, down right down the middle. So just put us on your list if you would. Okay.
So if
So
I
are you
send that,
representing them?
What's that?
Dan, do you represent the IFA fellows?
Yes, I've got that listed. Okay, the IFA, and so I'm
So if
the.
we send the stuff to you.
You can send it to me. Sure. Brian Coulter is the regional rep. So.
I can further on that, to Mr. Bronsma. So I know.
Will you state your name and for the
Derek
record?
Kirk.
Thanks.
So what he's talking about is Mr. Bronsma would like to kind of get from this corner over to this one, if a deal can be reached. I know IFA wanted to put in a door so they could have access here to get to the side of their building. And Mr. Bronsma's property is similar to this over here in shape. So he also wanted to widen this here. I believe that property line is right there. So he wanted to widen this side and kind of square off his as well.
All right, thank you. Okay, this will go on the action.
Okay.
We will now move to our staff part with item number 8, consider 2020 board appointments. I did email these at about 5 o'clock.
Yes.
So cheers to that.
So I need to look at it.
So the only change to the council appointments would be changing Tyler out for Paul's one. So it would be Tyler Melling would be on RapTac Arts, the Cedar Area Transit Committee, and Frontier Home.
Yeah, sticky note up here.
I have this all in like color-coded charts for you in your
Of course
email.
you do.
And then the library would be Wolseley and then Cross Hollows, reappoint the 3 from there. Then Barton, Chad Reed, and Maria Twitchell. Housing Authority, Steve Wood, reappoint. Peter Grimshaw for Cal Robbins and Carolyn Jensen, reappoint. They've asked that we put Farrah Lefevre on the Downtown Historic Preservation Committee and Active Transportation Committee. Austin McKinney, James Spinney, and Kara Taylor are the names we are proposing. And there will be more board appointments.
And they're all good with this, correct? I mean, I know my people are. I mean,
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
And there'll be more board appointments coming later. So that is for now. Can that go on consent?
Yes.
yes.
All right. Item number 9, consider a resolution amending the city's purchasing policy.
So this was prompted by Councilwoman Hartley. Her concern was that she wanted to make sure the city had some sort of say in who's doing the appraisals on city property. So I added a sentence that just stated the city reserves the right to select the appraiser and order the appraisal. I think it's pretty simple. The only concern that I'll express is this just kind of puts staff in an awkward position of appraisers coming to us and say, why aren't you picking me? And I try to keep staff out of those situations.
Then you should do it.
The appraisal?
No.
You couldn't afford my appraisals. So anyways, that's my only concern.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
there's
I-
one caveat to mention. There are some appraisals where we don't have that sort of flexibility that this change is purporting that we have. And the one that leaps to my mind is one we're doing right now with the U.S. Forest Service on the property to the east of La Fiesta and west of the cart storage building. When we talked to the Forest Service about needing an appraisal on the property, they have very specific rules and requirements that they have to follow when it comes to purchasing property and appraising the value. So if we were to tell them you have to hire XYZ appraiser that we choose, that appraiser may not even fit their requirements, and it might double some costs, or they might just walk away. So if we want to go down this road, please leave room for us to work with the Forest Service or such entities that tend to be a little less flexible.
Sure. There could be stuff with FAA or any number of people.
Yeah, can't there be some provision that allows flexibility in dealing with other government entities or?
Well, we might want to consider putting something like that in there.
Yeah,
I think we should.
I would encourage that.
And the language was a may, not a shall, correct? And so we,
Yeah, so so what it says is the city reserves the right, but I
Mhm.
could state the city may reserve the right, just to give that even more.
right, because, and she's not here to bring up the issue, but I imagine this would be something where maybe council or staff would see a potential problem with the other party selecting the appraisal. And so it would be something that the city would prompt us to take action on anyway. It wouldn't be a normal procedure, correct?
Ideally.
Ideally. Okay.
If worse came to worse, we would, and somebody came in with an appraisal that's ridiculously low,
Mhm.
we would bring that up to the council in the meeting when you went to make decisions and say, look, we've been buying property in this area. We know it's going for this ballpark and they're not even close. So,
right.
All right.
Yeah.
So this will go on the action. Item number 10, consider an ordinance regulating the zoning of cannabis production, processing, and distribution.
So in December of 2018, Proposition 2 passed on the ballot. That opened up the ability to use medical marijuana. It opened those gates up quite wide. Well, to some people's opinion, it opened it up quite wide. The state legislature viewed it that way, so they kind of closed the gates a little bit. They legalized the cultivation of marijuana, the manufacturing of it into a product, and then the distribution of it through a pharmacy. How they're regulating these are based on a permit basis, and those are being handed out, well, applied for at the state and then handed out probably a little conservatively right now. And they'll see how the demand and the market responds, and they may hand out more permits moving forward. But in that time, the city's had multiple companies come forward and ask, hey, where can we put a pharmacy? Where can we put a place where we can grow and manufacture this? And so in order to get ahead of this before we have too many people that obtain licenses, we thought it'd be wise just to put this in our zoning ordinances so staff had clear direction to provide. So just a couple parts of the law to be aware of. So when it comes to the growing, the processing, and the distributing of it through a pharmacy, there are certain setbacks that are set out in the law. So for the cannabis production establishment, which would be both the growing and the processing, it can't be within 1,000 feet of a community location. Community location would be like a public library, a playground, a private school, preschool, a church. And then the other caveat is it can't be within 600 feet of a district that the municipality is primarily zoned as residential. So in Cedar City, our R1, R2, and R3 zones, those are clearly identified as primarily residential. One addition that the staff's recommending is that we label our mixed use zone as primarily residential. And over the past several years that I've been with the city, most of the time our mixed use zone is being used for apartments. So that was the one suggestion we made. And then the second suggestion was labeling in our zoning table where these uses would be permitted. So what we're recommending is that a cannabis production establishment, which would contain both the growing and the production, that only be permitted in the INM2 zones. Then we deal with the cannabis pharmacy. Staff's approach was to treat it like any other drugstore. So we are going to permit it in every zone except for the INM2. We talked about that with the Planning Commission. Dallas represents a client that would like to see it in the INM2. Planning Commission felt comfortable with it being an INM2.
Put them together.
Put them together. Staff's only concern really was just preserving land that we have for this high and industrial uses. I don't see all this land being used up by 30 cannabis pharmacies. I just don't see that right now. But that was
Right
just
now.
that was just one of the reasons, and we didn't feel like the description of the zone really fit. Planning Commission felt different. And we respect that. We really don't have strong opposition to it either way. Those are just our initial concerns and take.
So one other quick item to mention is we can't, as a municipality, prohibit it. So we can't zone it out. The state stepped in and said, here's the setbacks and make room for these things.
Question I had for legal on the chart. I forgot I was going to go back and look at the regular uses, not these that we have in our packet, which starts with mixed use. But we have a definition for a pharmacy and where it's permitted as a pharmacy.
Yeah.
Because on this chart here, there's only drugstore. Now there's a difference. That's what I'm trying to make clear here, so I can ask my question. So if it's listed under a cannabis pharmacy, can they distribute regular prescriptions as well as cannabis on site?
I would assume so, yeah.
If we were to
Yeah.
say allow them to have the pharmacy on site,
Yeah.
the cannabis pharmacy
Yep.
on site with, the growing production.
Yeah, if it's a regular pharmacy,
Yeah,
right?
state law doesn't treat this any different than a prescription for oxycodone.
Because the other one, it's not listed in our information because we just have these uses. But if we go back to the other uses in the other zones, the pharmacy would show up. So that was just a question I had. I was trying to figure out I don't know if there's a problem with that. If we were to put the distribution point out with the farm, it sounded like a good idea just to have it all there. But then I don't know, I had some other thoughts about, I don't know,
Well, it's going to be,
Um,
right now, Cedar City's been granted one license, but
One pharmacy.
one
Right.
pharmacy, excuse me.
One pharmacy license.
Excuse me.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
terminology.
Yeah.
But let's say it ever got up to be 3 or 4. But what we're talking about in this particular case is allowing it to be all in one location in an INM2 zone.
Correct.
But if there was another license granted for a pharmacy, it could be anywhere in the zones that we've outlined for a pharmacy to be, correct?
Correct.
Which is commercial? Yep. Commercial zones.
Pardon?
It's pretty much in the commercial areas.
Commercial mixed.
Yeah, for the
Central
pharmacies, right,
commercial.
right. So the question I have maybe is just one of, I honestly don't know how much space this all takes to grow it, cultivate it, and all that stuff besides the point of sale. Is there a reason that it would go in INM2 as opposed to INM1? Is it a space? Is it an issue of water? What is it?
The pharmacy itself.
No, not the pharmacy, the
The
cultivation and the,
cultivation.
So the reason why we're suggesting that INM2 is because Paul called some cities that are dealing with this. They said depending on factory and the construction, the smell
Right.
can be kind of bad, especially in those production
Okay.
Smell.
processing.
There you go.
I mean,
Yeah.
even the pharmacy locations, they smell.
Yeah, and smell it.
Smell like marijuana. So if you're
Okay.
going to have a large growing operation and a processing facility, it's going to smell.
Yeah, like the mushroom
The
farm.
way
or
our
something.
zoning scheme is set up, this it can sound bad, but it's not intended to be bad. The
No, I
smelly
understand.
uses are subject to the
Sure.
INM2.
No, that explains it very
Dusty,
clearly.
noisy, smelly stuff goes in INM2.
So then if one of our local pharmacies that's already in business, Bullock Drug, whoever, Walmart, whatever, if they got the permit, they could dispense cannabis through their pharmacy.
Not necessarily. They would still have to meet these distance requirements that the state has established.
Yeah,
I don't know if Bullock would meet those. Where it's
Bullocks
at.
may not. That's probably a bad example, but
Some of the grocery stores are in the same boat. Lynn's would definitely not meet it because they're right across the street from the park.
right.
Uh,
Smith's.
Smith's
Well,
backed
neither
right
was
up to a
Smith's.
residential neighborhood.
Yeah.
Walmart's got residential neighborhoods right across the road. So, I don't know.
Probably not.
The guys that are going to want to do it are going to have to, it's going to be like the tobacco specialty retail shops. They're going to have to hunt around and find that sweet spot property.
Don't the state setbacks trump anything we do?
They do. And so a pharmacy, it's a more narrow, right? It's 200 feet from a community location or 600 feet from a zone primarily
For
residential.
that, yeah.
And one of my concerns when I read your memo, Tyler, was that while I understand the simplicity and maybe some of the economies of scale in this particular case of having the production and the sales at the same point, I also don't think we should be giving special treatment. So I'd asked Tyler if perhaps we could, if we are going to allow cannabis pharmacies in INM2 to also allow drugstores, and then as Ron mentioned, maybe these other pharmacies with a footnote or something. And I sent some sample language, and I don't know if we need to maybe alter that, but just putting any future drugstore or pharmacy operators that want to operate in an INM2 on notice that these are the stinky, smelly, dusty, dirty, loud places, and that is the safe haven for those things. And so if a drugstore, whether because they do compounding or mailing or anything else, decides to open in an INM2, that they're on notice that if not then, in the future sometime, there's going to be problems with being in that zone, and we're not going to be very sympathetic.
And I can take that language and provide that to the council for the action meeting to give you a couple options.
Okay.
Are there additional comments or questions related to this? Okay, we'll go on the action agenda. Item number 11, public hearing to consider revisions to the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget.
Go, Jason. Good evening, council. Jason Norris, finance. For any of the audience, this is the boring part of the meeting, so if you want to exit, I won't be offended. I never am.
It's only the money part.
Yeah, that's right. It is the expensive part.
Yeah.
So we are doing our fourth budget revision of the year, but this is the large one. This is, as I've provided in your packets, one that we'll do for the general fund, the RDA, and the MBA. So you get to hear from me 3 times. So hopefully I get more entertaining as the night goes on. And the big component of this budget revision is that we close out all of our prior year capital projects during the audit. We have many, many projects that are still in some state of completion, whether that's we haven't started some of them or they're in the design phase, or we have bid and contracted projects that are still incomplete. We move those remaining budget balances forward into our fiscal 2020 period so that everything matches up as the state requires us to do. So I've provided a sub list of every single capital project that the city is doing. And then I've also provided the budget itself with all those changes. So there are just a few minor adjustments that I've made in the general fund and the special revenue funds. I'm going to point those out really quickly, and then we'll go through the capital list. So on page 2-1, which is the first page of the budget, we had a police drug-free community grant, and we had a
wildland fire grant. The police grant was $12,500 we were awarded. The fire grant was $9,910 that we were awarded. In the state grant for CDBG that we accommodate for turn services, that's been brought up in the past, but you see that reflected there. It's $102,118. We passed that through for turn services. On page 2-3, there's a revenue for a private donation that was made to parks. I believe that was for Christmas lighting on the park pavilion.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I
Don't want to miss that.
Last week.
Yeah,
No,
no,
this
that's not
is a
from our
different
earlier
one.
meeting, but
Yeah,
yes,
there
that's
was
where
one
that
for
came from.
Christmas lighting on the park pavilion.
And then Cross Hollows, as we were just received a donation for $100,000 for stalls.
So it was earmarked for a specific thing then, that
It
gift.
is, yes, that gift is restricted
Okay.
for doing stalls. The Iron County granted us, I believe, $50,000 from tourism restaurant tax, and we have another 50 or 100,000 that we had committed as well to doing stalls. So I don't know where that puts us comprehensively in stalls, but I know we had a goal to get enough out there that we could host some larger events. We've probably got to be getting close to that now with this private donation on that one. So those are all the little minor adjustments within the general fund. So let's talk about the capital list itself. One, I've already mentioned the 100,000 for the horse stalls. So that's a new project you've never seen before. And then you'll notice we've received a letter in the last couple of weeks that we're not going to be moving forward on the ice skating facility. So we've unencumbered the $1.5 million that we had reserved for that project. So it is no longer in this capital list. And down in the airport, which is Fund 24, Iron County contributed $15,195 to the carpet project. I wasn't in any of those meetings, but apparently they felt that they wanted to participate further than what we had funded within the airport for carpeting. So the county contributed the $15,000. So that's a brand new item you have not
Has
seen.
that carpet happened yet, or is it to happen?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Ryan, we've done the carpet out there yet? No.
Not yet.
Okay.
So that
I'm glad, because I was going to really. Okay.
It was used carpet.
Yeah, it was used carpet.
Okay, so within the general fund, those are the only, and the special revenue funds, those are the new items. Everything else that's being moved forward is a capital project that's been approved through city council in the past. Do you have any questions on any of those projects or concerns with any of them? Anything you want me to comb through? Okay,
No, I had
I'll
my
sit
chance-
down.
I had
We'll
my
have the-
chance today with you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we've discussed some of these items, so I'll sit down. We'll have the public hearing, and then I'll be back up during the other meetings.
All right, we will open the public hearing on this. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing and move this on to our action agenda. And with that,
Move to adjourn this meeting and go into our redevelopment agency meeting.
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
One thing with the RDA MBA, Councilman Cousins was the secretary for both.
I was the secretary for one of them.
Okay. He
I was
only
the
on
secretary
one.
for the MBA.
Then he was secretary for RDA.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
So
Stop going to the tanning beds. You got to stop going to the tanning bed, man.
This is golf. This is right. Huh?
Oh, it is? Oh.
You're just jealous, aren't you, Paul?
I am.
Pale
Yeah,
Willa
I am,
guys
right?
hate.
I'm jealous of the hair is what I'm jealous of. So do we need to elect somebody or appoint somebody or, I
No.
mean, to the
You've
RDA?
just been appointed.
I would have been appointed?
No, well, we have to do it once we start the meeting
No, I
and all of
understand
that.
that.
But we are going to need to take
Thank you.
care of that.
Thank you.
If you guys are okay, we'll just put it on the agenda for next week. Is that okay, Ron?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That works.
Just RDA?
Yeah,
It
because
wasn't MBA?
no, Scott's apparently MBA.
I am. I'm
I
NBA.
think he is MBA. Yeah.
Why did we do one and not the other?
Don't know, because
Make
Paul
him
was still
feel
here, I
important.
guess.
I don't know. Yeah.
I guess it Paul was still here.
You ready?
I've
Jazz
done
game
so
starts
much. I
today,
signed
so you gotta hustle.
pieces of paper. I'm taxed.
Said the
I don't know
Jazz
what to
game
do.
I
starts
can't
today,
do.
so-
Did you have commemorative pens?
Oh, I should have had commemorative pens.
That's right.
Say here, use this. Here's the, sign it. This is yours.
Yeah, right. See, there was
That's
a
what we need to
there
do.
was a
Every time we
satire
sign the monthly
church
bill,
here.
we should have commemorative pens.
Commemorative
Say,
pen.
how would you like to have our bill for the December bills?
There was a satire article that there were
Can
also
put it on these screens.
Nancy Pelosi commemorative dentures.
All right.
Ready?
She did.
All right, we'd like to call the redevelopment agency meeting to order for January 22nd, 2020. We have item on the business agenda, public hearing to consider revisions to the 2019-2020 fiscal year budget. Mr. Jason Morris.
Jason Norris, Finance. I'm back. All right. RDA, right? Okay. So Fund 57 is the RDA, which is on page 2-33. It should be separate in your
233, yeah.
packets. So Fund 57, we do a couple of things in the redevelopment agency. One of which is we receipt tax increment revenue for a few different projects, and then we disperse those to a few of the taxing entities or to developers or companies that have specific incentives. So both the Port 15 and GenPack incentives that and also the MSC Aerospace, we make budget estimates when we present the main budget, but these amounts that I've now printed in the material, 446,323 for Port 15, 233,868 for GenPack, and 18,512 for MSC Aerospace. Those are the actual amounts that were distributed to us from the county. So we're adjusting to those, and then we will distribute that out to the related entities. And then within Fund 57, I believe we had two capital projects. One is the Main Street electrical upgrades and metal grates. That's a prior year project. We're moving forward, and then Christmas lights were already in the 2020 budget. That's all I have for the RDA.
It's not totally unexpended. We've expended.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, if not, we'll open the public hearing. If anybody'd like to come up and address it.
Danny, did you
None
see
of
how
you
much
for?
the payout to
You know,
Port 15 increased? Because they sold some property and developed some? Yeah. Did the council notice that?
No, I didn't notice how
So-
much it increased.
Port 15, our agreement with them is there's a cap on how much we'll pay them back, but the revenue source for it is the property taxes off the Port 15 property. And for
Mhm.
years, it had been kind of stagnant because Charlotte Pipe was pretty much the only game in town. Well, GoEx came in, and you can see the increase. So the developer should have some incentive to develop.
Good.
We'd like to see a whole lot more of that.
Yeah. Okay, seeing no other comments, we'll close the public hearing and I'll entertain a motion.
Entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting and move into our municipal building authority meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I'm so excited.
It's fake news.
Fake
That
news?
whole piece of
Fake
paper was
news.
Fake
What?
news.
There's not fake news.
The media left already.
Yeah.
And that three
It's funny
is
they're
comprised of
concerned
people
about
that are actually
parking, but
loading the dishwasher.
You ready?
$11 and nobody gets.
Ready.
Okay. I'd like to call the Municipal Building Authority meeting to order for January 22nd, 2020. Item on the business agenda is a public hearing to consider revisions to the 2019-2020 fiscal year budget. Mr. Jason Norris. Well,
Thank you. Jason Norris, Finance. We have one prior year project in the Municipal Building Authority, which is the animal shelter. The reason that the majority of the animal shelter construction project is in the Municipal Building Authority is that's the avenue that we bond for the project. And there's quite a lot of reasons we have to do that, but there's just a remaining amount that wasn't paid to the contractors as of June 30th. So that rolled into probably July or August. Those last few payments were made. And then we also have a non-bond animal shelter fund, which is Fund 49. That's where we've been collecting donations for some various things we wanted to do around the shelter. And then we have a couple of projects in landscaping and a little bit of architecture is paid out of Fund 49 as well. But that's where the two components of the animal shelter are budgeted.
okay. Any questions, comments? Okay, if not, we'll open the public hearing. If any of you would desire to come up and express your thoughts. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And we'll entertain a motion.
Move to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. History.
We adjourned then totally.